Welcome to my predictions for 2024 in Overwatch Sphere, Overwatch Land. And we're going to break this down section to section. So we're going to have stuff on the gameplay, stuff on the format changes that might come in 2024, dev communication changes, internal dev changes, whatever might happen. But first, we must start with Microsoft. The Microsoft deal is now basically done. Bobby Kotick is gone. Fuck that guy. Fuck that guy to hell. I hope he rots. We don't know as outsiders what exactly is going to happen to each individual Blizzard team once Microsoft comes through. What we know is it cannot get worse. It could not have been much worse. The entire world of CEOs looked at Bobby Kotick as like a stellar example of how bad it could be. So even if the Microsoft hierarchy is incompetent, they will not be maliciously sabotaging their own games the way Bobby Kotick was, specifically with Overwatch. We can only expect stonks to go up. It's going to get better. So the communication that's coming from the Microsoft side has been, we're going to let Blizzard be Blizzard, right? Now, we must throw some skepticism. Are they going to really back up what they say? The devs that I've spoken to are all very excited about the Microsoft deal, and they're all very happy with Phil Spencer. Like I was there at BlizzCon, and the devs were like, "Oh man, I met Phil. He seems like a great guy. He seems to genuinely care. He's genuinely a gamer." And Phil says, look, Overwatch or Blizzard is all about making legendary games. They make awesome games. So we're just going to let Blizzard be Blizzard and make awesome games. The worst parts of Overwatch come from the Activision side of things, right? So most people's complaints generally boil down to monetization. I think the wider community anyways, the wider public, dislikes the monetization of the game. We don't know if that's going to continue or not, but it's likely that was influenced heavily by Bobby. So there's a good chance that gets better, even if it's not perfect. Secondly, creative decisions can be more natural. They don't have to be monetization first. So Blizzard in the past, have kind of made games for the game's sake first and then figured out how to sell it later. Nowadays, it often feels like we're worried about the monetization first and then the game later. And also, bigger picture, with Microsoft being such a giant company, Blizzard can go a little bit less under the microscope, right? So with Activision Blizzard, firstly, whenever there were scandals, as there were many, unfortunately, Blizzard got implicated and Team 4 got implicated, even though they had nothing to do with any of it. They didn't have anything to do with the sexual harassment. They weren't involved in it at all. The Overwatch team was apparently very nice, according to their own employees. And Blizzard can also then maybe make more bold decisions with Pride events, for example, right? Because they don't have to worry so much about hurting the bigger company's bottom line. It will still be a consideration. It's not like any CEO, any management guy is going to give them a pass to blow money up the wall. But they could hopefully go harder on Pride events, go harder on like representation in their games, which they already seem to be doing, judging by the next hero venture who is non-binary. So the big potential negative, if things don't change, we don't have Bobby Kotick to blame anymore. So the one potential negative, currently we are often soft on the devs because I personally feel like half the shit comes from Bobby's end, right? And we've heard many horror stories, and the horror stories continue to come out, and they'll probably continue to come out for years on end as employees leave Blizzard. They're probably going to be public, especially on social media, about how horrible Bobby was and what kind of things he did and how much sabotaging he did. But if things don't get better, if the monetization is still shit, if there are still weird, scummy decisions being made, if there is still gross incompetence in the management of the game, we can no longer blame Bobby for it. And now that's straight up Team 4. You can't blame Microsoft for this now too, right? Can't keep passing the buck somewhere else. It's probably going to be only Team 4's fault. So one last thing to add on the Microsoft front is it does open up the franchise of Overwatch bigger, because again, Microsoft bigger scale, collaborations with Microsoft could be huge. Microsoft has the power to make more things happen. So we often complain about how Overwatch should have a Netflix show, Overwatch could do a spin-off game, Overwatch could do an RPG. So much Overwatch could do, but these things need resources, these things need money, and Activision never really seemed to sell into it, whereas Microsoft could. So of course they have a bunch of games that are Microsoft owned that they could collaborate with, which is great. Or they could be more open to collaborating with other developers because Microsoft doesn't need to be petty so much as maybe Activision would be. They have been known to do passion projects. So they greenlit the latest Age of Empires, I think it was Age of Empires 4, which didn't really do commercially massive business, but they greenlit it anyways because they were like, we like this franchise, we care about this franchise. And here's one significant part of Microsoft's business approach. Their whole POV is to look at things from a satisfaction point of view, not just a money point of view. So Microsoft's big plan, to give you guys some context, is for their Game Pass to be the be-all and end-all, right? Every like big corp has realized the subscription services are great because they're guaranteed money every month. And once you hook people in, they kind of, the threshold to leave becomes higher than the threshold to pay, right? So if you were to ask someone to pay $10 every single time manually, it's going to be much harder than asking for them to pay $10 once and make it a recurring subscription. And then by the time that they are like, I'm unsatisfied, they're probably paying, $15 worth of money for a thing they would have only wanted to pay $10 for, right? So once you get people into subscription services, they're hooked. And they don't tend to leave so much. So Microsoft want that for their wider ecosystem, right? They want the Game Pass. And this was where the whole legal lawsuit came in. That they want everybody to be on the Game Pass and all the games you want to play to be available on the Game Pass. So it becomes like this unmissable thing. Kind of like early Netflix, right? Early Netflix has had so many cool things you wanted to watch that you had to subscribe until all the other subscription services came out, chunking away parts and pieces of Netflix to make it less and less appealing. So Microsoft, in that context, don't need every game to be a money-making hit. They don't need every game to be squeezing your money. They just need it to be enough to keep you loyal and satisfied in the Game Pass world, right? So that means that Overwatch can afford to be a bit more like cater to its fan base. We could see more experimentation with the Overwatch franchise. Like an Overwatch card game or an Overwatch Battle Royale that Samit always wants, or RPG, like a throwaway RPG or something. I don't have an idea of exactly what. It could be the Netflix show. This is something that Microsoft will and has shown a propensity to do. So next bit we're going to talk about is public perception. So how is Overwatch likely to shape up for the wider gaming community in particular? We can't expect normies to be interested in Overwatch unless we get one of those Netflix shows like what Arcane did for League of Legends. So what is the wider gaming community going to think about Overwatch? So in this last year, we have seen the public perception of Overwatch shift away from a complete meme to slightly salvage. So obviously we had the Steam debacle this year, which was not good. Everybody kind of point and laugh at Overwatch. Haha, shit game. Porn was better. I miss Overwatch 1. That aside, we're seeing more and more people kind of say that, Overwatch is a pretty good game. It's playable. Dexerto name it as their best multiplayer game of the year. So they basically name it as like their writers, their journalists, POVs, best game in that sense. So stuff like that is really good because when gaming publications are publicly and consistently saying, oh, actually this game is really good and actually it's really well managed and really well handled, that means that more people are going to think about it. They're going to be like, oh yeah, maybe Overwatch isn't so bad anymore. Maybe Overwatch 2 is actually playable. Like I heard it was shit, but maybe they fixed around. The way that like No Man's Sky did, right? Like No Man's Sky launched under tremendous expectation, failed to meet those expectations. But years later, word got out that like actually by now they fixed all the things. Like they made it good. They fixed all the problems. They've given us the features they said they would. You guys should go try it. And now everyone is like, oh yeah, actually it's a great game now. It's where it should have been on launch, but it's a great game now. And Overwatch could do a similar thing because we have a similar problem in the sense that we promised a lot and vastly under-delivered. Obviously the PvE was meant to be this redefine the sequel business. It was not even passable as a PvE, to be honest. We're 1 year in. 2 years in, will we be slightly further down the line? Okay, we got the features that we were supposed to have. Like, because only now have they figured out how to balance the game, how to handle the game to some extent. Whatever complaints you and I may have about the particulars, they're starting to come to some vision. So it's steadily doing better, and hopefully that continues. As long as they don't make some vastly terrible decisions, I expect that it will do better. It will more people will feel like Overwatch isn't a meme shit game, and more people should hopefully be willing to try it, especially if the collabs are big. I don't know what they could do, but if Lady Gaga comes on board, then there's a huge chance for the redemption of the public perception of Overwatch, right? Because the K-pop collab was great, but obviously still within a relative niche of only X amount of people really know what K-pop really is. You could argue that the K-pop section of the internet is more closely aligned with the gaming section of the internet, but still, there's wider berths out there that would hit more gamers and even non-gamers into potentially thinking about Overwatch. So we kind of opened the door to what a collab could do for Overwatch. The devs themselves have teased that, or not teased, they've straight up told us that they have experimented with hero bands. And they also told us that they kind of envision changing the format of Overwatch more as they go along. They've kind of cited the quick play changes that they've made, right? Where they're like, your quick play, the respawn timer, right? Like 8 seconds now, you can kind of regroup with your teammates and go. They're willing to do other changes like that. They're willing to experiment with more things like that. And I think that's a good thing. I do think Overwatch needs to keep shaking up its format. And we've seen other games successfully do this. Usually, you're kind of one of two ways. Either your game is hardcore and it should very little change, right? It shouldn't change a lot in the vein of like a CS or a Valorant even. You don't want to change that too much. Or MOBA games, again, they do some shakeups, but the fundamental experience remains the same. Versus, I think the more Fortnite approach, where you need to change your game up, otherwise people get bored. And we can look at Apex Legends or what happens where like you don't evolve your game enough, you let it go stale, things bother the community, they build up, and all of a sudden you kind of hit this crash where people just come to the end of their tether and they're like, I no longer want to play this game. We've already been there with Overwatch 1, but that's a lesson to be taken from the wider gaming ecosystem. I do think they should do format changes. In terms of what they will do, again, they've mentioned hero bans, right? Hero bans is the one that they've been like, we've been messing around with hero bans. We've been messing around with some idea of like limiting how much you can swap. I expect some form of this to go through in some form. It might start in quick play for all we know. There might be like a mini season like they did with the team queue. Or they might just throw it in the comp because they have shown the propensity to just throw shit in the comp. In the past, I was a huge advocate of hero bans. I think the need for hero bans is lesser now in Overwatch 2. The benefit of hero bans is that it dislodges stale metas, right? Like it dislodges people just picking the same 5 heroes over and over. And in a state like the game is in right now where Maga's busted, hero bans would be great. So if they plan on doing more Maga shenanigans, so like releasing heroes that are so strong that you kind of have to play them, in that context, hero bans is great. In a world where we swap around so much, I don't so feel the pressing need for hero bans, but I still think they're a net good because anytime you as a player can tailor your experience to what you like and remove what you dislike, it's great. We've had hero pools before and that was terrible. Just a terribly done idea. Honestly, whoever that was should have gotten fired if they haven't already. Whoever was like, let's do hero pools instead. I hope they have nothing to do with Overwatch's format changes at all forever. This is a terrible, terrible idea. Hero bans allows you to potentially, even if it's a little bit, feeling more in control of your game is good. And I think overall, you will have more games where you're getting to remove something you dislike than the thing you like is being removed. So I think hero bans would be good, and I think we will see some experimentation with it. What else could they do is perhaps the question. Will they experiment with 6v6? I think no. I don't think they're gonna really go back. I don't think they're even gonna give any credence to the idea. And I think the cries for 6v6 will continue to go as long as there are any set of people who are unsatisfied with Overwatch 2 and prefer Overwatch 1. That will continue happening, I think. More quick play style changes. So again, the change of respawn timers is the kind of stuff I think they will experiment with more. Maybe they will experiment more specifically on maps. And remember that we have a new game mode coming, right? So we know that 5 CP is incoming. And I wonder if that will, A, go down well. Like, we'll have to see how it plays. And maybe that will encourage them to experiment more with respawn timers or how respawns even work, where you can respawn. I expect hero bans to come through in some way. I don't expect any experimentation with the number of players. But I do think we're going to see at least one more quick play style change where the respawn timers will be messed around with, or like the way ult charge works could be messed around with, right? Like maybe how much ult charge you build, or a global ult charge nerf, things like this. Or I think they should change the role passes. I think here's how it's gonna go. They've already spoken about like experimenting with like a mass healing nerf. I think they will do that before the role passive change, probably, because they have shown a little bit of obstinance on some of these points. When they introduce some of these things, they tend not to mess with them. So they added role passes, they don't want to change that. They added the ult charge swap, they don't want to remove that, right? So they like keeping these things in. So I imagine they will continue to push on the role passives. And instead, what we will see is some sort of heavy-handed global nerf to like healing or damage received. My hot prediction, based off of not much evidence, but just a hunch, they're gonna re-experiment with the healing is reduced when you're in combat idea. So for those who don't remember, at the very early launch of Overwatch 2, they experimented with this idea that when you get into combat, the healing you receive is lower. So outside of combat, if you haven't been hit for a while, then you get, let's say a 75 HP heal 75. but in combat only heals like 50. My prediction is they're going to experiment with that again. I think they're going to push that again because they love bringing these ideas back. They've always shown that they like, if they experiment with something, they want to try it again later in some other form. And now that the community has been crying for some sort of healer support nerf, I think that's the direction they're going to try. I do not think they will care about their pro scene in any meaningful way outside of the World Cup. So I do think we'll see the World Cup happen again, which is great. It was awesome. And hopefully we'll have another big event at BlizzCon and hopefully slightly better managed than it was last time. But I do not see Blizzard from the top down messing with the pro scene. Likelihood is that the Saudi E-League will kind of take over as the primary version of pro Overwatch. And who knows what implications that will have for, you know, what is allowed to be said and shown in Overwatch pro level, considering the ideologies that we've seen KSA push for. But I think that we're not going to see any official Blizzard events outside of the odd Flash Ops tournament, calling all heroes, and, you know, some tournaments like that, basically. There will be those comp changes, which I haven't even spoke about because we all know what's coming. So I expect that to just kind of go down well and inoffensively. But I don't know if that'll be enough to make people want to grind the game again. So I would like them to kind of try more things, put out an experimental card, hopefully, and generally try to, like, make Overwatch silly and exciting again. I think that's the sentiment I get from the rest of the community. And that's certainly how I would enjoy Overwatch to be. We don't need, like, slow 4 heroes change every 2 months kind of balancing. We need cool shit. We need fun, exciting shit that makes you log on and want to play. So we already know the next 3 heroes. We're going to get Venture, we get DPS, Space Ranger, support, and a tank. Now, generally, DPS heroes change the meta less than support and tank heroes. But if they release something Sojourn-esque, that might make a big difference, right? And Venture is just going to be like a DPS you can play. And if she's being like hard meta is only because she's like overtuned. I don't reckon, just based off of the gameplay we've seen, that there's going to be some fundamental change that she brings to Overwatch as a whole. But I do think that she could just be very strong. Space Ranger, we have no idea, no speculation on what she will bring to the game. And the tank, again, all we got is some weird inhuman looking thing, but of course that was like a meme art, so it could just be how the art was drawn. So I don't expect a huge shift in like how Overwatch is played, barring unless that last tank is something odd going on. I expect fully that Ana and Anti-Nade will get nerfed in the near future, in the next couple months. I fully expect Ana and Nade will get nerfed. And I hope Hog and Mauga are changed in some way at the same time. Communities tends to obsess over one thing and the other, and then the devs kind of, they tend to answer it. As they've shown, in Overwatch 1, they would have probably just like let it go, or maybe been obstinate, been like, it's fine. In Overwatch 2, you can see this is a good or a bad thing. They tend to listen when everybody's complaining about something. The good part is that they're listening, the bad part is this doesn't always actually help. Sometimes it makes things worse. So the community is now fixated on Ana Nade, and Ana in particular is like OP, OP, OP. I personally disagree, but we've gone through that many times over. I think Ana Nade is great, and I think we should first nerf Hog and Mauga, and then we'll let that settle, and then you can consider nerfing Anti-Nade. But still, then you need to buff Ana in some other ways. Throwaway prediction is Anti-Nade is just gonna like reduce healing by 50%, and in compensation, they'll give Ana like the 75 damage back or something. They will do something about Mauga when they come back from their winter break. And I would like them to do something about Hog, because they acknowledged before they left that Hog was like by far the highest win rate tank. And then they dropped Mauga, who happens to farm Hog, so they were probably like, it's fine. But once they nerf Mauga, then Hog is gonna run rampant again. So I hope they change something about Hog, and I hope they start thinking about the future of tanks in the need for ability mitigation. As we've spoken about in podcasts, most tanks have damage mitigation, but they don't have ability mitigation. So they don't have the ability to block a thing or negate a thing the way Orion can block, Winston can block, Zarya can negate, Orisa can block, Sigma can block, Diva can block, right? Hog, Mauga, Junker Queen, these guys need to be able to do something about an ability thrown at them. At the moment they can't, other than run away. So I think that's something they need to think about. Will they? I don't think so. I think they're going to just buck the problem down the road. Their approach has been very like seat of the pants operation, where they're just like, if it isn't a problem right now, change it to whatever we can do and then push that problem till later. There's going to be some hero reworks, I imagine. I'm trying to think who might get reworked. Yeah, Pharah, Ball, those are good shouts. They've already alluded to the fact that they want to make Pharah feather more, in the sense that they don't want her to be perma in the skybox, which everyone agrees is frustrating as hell. So they're going to do something about that. Whether that counts as a full-on rework, we'll have to see. Yeah, Cass is a good call as well. Cassidy, again, they've talked about for a while how they kind of don't feel like they have an identity for him. He's not doing what he should do. He's not unique in any particular way. He's just annoying as fuck with his hinder. And then Ball, again, has been a little bit... He's struggled or he's been busted. Like, he was just... There was that one meta where he was super strong. But even then, now, I just think that, like, if we're entering counter swap land and Ball is so easy to counter swap, they do need to do something about it. Did they mention Reaper? Oh, I didn't. I missed that if so. Okay, there you go then. Okay, we'll add Reaper. I missed that part. So I think what will be our final section will be monetization. And as Jared told me personally, again, we have to be very careful because the language they used was, our goal is to make the heroes available to everyone on launch and make more heroes available for players who miss them. That doesn't necessarily mean that the heroes are just free and completely out of the battle pass. The reason I'm fixating on that is that leaves wiggle room. That leaves wiggle room to say, oh, well, you still have to pay for the heroes in a battle pass, but you can try them for 2 weeks or something, right? Or they're available on the season that they're there, but then you have to buy them for the previous season. But the community has interpreted that as to be like, oh, heroes are going to be free. It's going to drive them to be like, shit, we kind of have to just do that now because... if we don't, people are going to be mad. In the same way, again, right, with like so much of this occurred in the Switch to Overwatch 2 where the PvE missions being paid for when people thought they were going to get it in the Watchpoint pack is a perfect example of this. Two things I think will happen. I think we might see an increase on the range of the skin prices, which is to say we may see a more expensive skin come out and we may see cheaper like skins be available more cheaply. The reason I say that is that the bigger the collabs get, the more they can potentially charge. The LeSeraphim collab for the bundle was pretty reasonable, I think, all things considered. But obviously the bigger scale of a collab we do, the more we might charge because we can get away with it. Plus they're going to want a cut of it as well. So you might see like, you know, the first $50 skin or something, right? Like a really expensive skin. They've also shown the propensity of trying to make skins more available for players. You know, the winter fair that's just going on right now is a good example of a nice idea, perhaps not executed so well. So they want to give us more skins. They want to be able to like let you earn and play for skins. They've been pushing more and more towards this, right? More and more towards the idea of like, let players earn skins. And you know, some will say, well, we said that from the start. But at least they're doing it. And I think that helps everyone because it's engagement for them. They want to make players more engaged. They want more players to finish the battle pass. They want more players to like just be playing the game. The player gets a reward by being like, yo, I got a cool skin. I can pick a skin. So I think we're going to see them make skins available more for players just by playing and by earning credits or whatever, and more stuff is available. But with the increased profile of the potential collabs incoming, there's a chance that we get some more expensive bundles and skins as well. I definitely expect more weapon skins. This is like a new thing that they've introduced. We saw 3 come out this time. Maybe in another season or 2 we'll get another 3. I don't think they're going to be massively prolific. It seems like the turnaround time for these is a little bit long. Or maybe they were just trying to test the waters and now they're going to go full gung-ho on it. But it seems like a fairly good thing to do, like in terms of monetization POV. Seems like you want to get weapon skins. Why not? It makes sense more to have a weapon inspect if you can have a bunch of weapon skins. Makes less sense when you don't. Still nice and people would have wanted it, but there's a good chance we start to see weapon inspects maybe some point in the like middle of the year. I hope they kind of ditch the idea of souvenirs. I don't think they will, because like nobody uses those shit. And if they are going to make it more of a thing, then at least make it more interesting. Like holding a pizza randomly in the middle of the game doesn't really make much sense. So I'd like to see them potentially expand what they do with the cosmetics. And I'm going to add here actually really quickly mythics with more choice. Because that was something that, again, I relate to Jared, which is that the lesson they've learned is that people don't like the way the last couple mythics have gone with how little choice they are. I expect to see mythics start to get more choice again. Maybe not the absolute first immediate one, because that will have been in the works for a while. But maybe season 10, season 11, you know, onwards, you're going to see mythics have more customization options again. And I'd like to see them kind of expand the range. Like, again, with Valorant, like when you get the last elimin around, there's like a big dun 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 and like huge animations and cool shit. I'd like to see them kind of push towards these kind of things where it's like, if I get the last kill in a team wipe, it's like, boom, some cool shit happens. Just so that, like, you know, we can kind of expand what our cosmetics do. And they definitely need to expand what souvenirs do if they want anyone to give a shit about randomly just pulling out a salt pepper shaker. Special elim animations. I don't think they would want elims Illim animations in the middle of a fight because it's just too much. But end of the fight, it makes more sense. Throwing souvenirs into the world like Ana Beach Ball emote. Just like a Junkrat trap souvenir becomes pay to win because you can make people think there's traps everywhere. I guess one more thing I'll add is that I'm hopeful that they'll do better for console. They've kind of pointed to a lot of console-specific issues. And of course, Microsoft are going to want to be keen on Xbox coming through with Overwatch. So I'm hopeful that they will do better for a console. Is there anything you'd want Team 4 to avoid specifically in 2024? I think I would like them to avoid being safe and slow on the gameplay side. I kind of have faith in the sense that they're going to make cool monetization things. Like, I think they're going to do cool collab skins and they're going to put out cool skins. But I personally am increasingly bored with Overwatch. I think the community is increasingly bored with Overwatch. The Season 9 competitive changes are obviously going to be good. Will they make everyone just want to grind again? I don't know. So I think that basically concludes my 2024 predictions for Overwatch. Thank you for listening. If you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe. Tell me what you think is going to happen for Overwatch in 2024. Is there anything I missed talking about? Is there any hot takes or hot predictions that you have on what you think will happen? Is there anything outside the box or aspirational that you'd want them to experiment with? An RPG, an Overwatch RPG, a solo player experience. I don't want PvE in the sense of like, I don't want multiplayer PvE. I just want to play a solo player Overwatch game where I play one character in a story world. That's what I want, big picture.